Whenever I review a Scottish steam locomotive in Train Simulator, she is usually something from the Caledonian Railway. Case in point, the 294 class 060 tender engine. Today's topic breaks that tradition, in the sense that she is from the Highland Railway, a company that has very little representation in TS. This is the Jones Goods class, notable for being the very first 460 design ever to run in the UK. The Jones Goods was built in 1894 by Sharp Stewart and Company of Glasgow, with a total build-out of 15 locomotives. They were originally known as the Big Goods, but for the longest time, they've been more commonly referred to as the Jones Goods in reference to their designer, David Jones. Insert a department store joke here. These engines primarily hauled freight trains, but could also be called upon to take passengers when required. All 15 survived into London, Midland and Scottish Railway ownership upon the grouping in 1923, but they would eventually be displaced by newer and more powerful locomotives. Withdrawals began in 1929, but by the time of the final withdrawal in 1940, the class leader, number 103, or LMS number 17196, had already been preserved for 6 years. "103 was one of 4 historic Scottish locomotives restored by British Railways in the late 1950s, as part of the Scottish Industries Exhibition. She spent the next 6 years hauling excursion trains, and even appeared in a film called Those Magnificent Men and Their Flying Machines. Unfortunately, she was taken out of service in 1966, and has been a static exhibit ever since. These days, she is the only Highland Railway locomotive left in existence, and can be found on display at the Riverside Museum in Glasgow. Caledonia Works released their Jones Goods add-on in July 2020, and as of early October 2025, the pack is still available on CW's website for a full price of £15. Unlike what Rapido Trains UK did for their 00 scale models, CW did not include fictional BR liveries with their add-on. However, there is one fictional livery in the pack anyway, namely pre-1928 LMS Crimson Lake. Meanwhile, the authentic liveries are as follows: Highland Railway Stroudley Yellow, HR Jones Apple Green, HR Drummond Green, HR Cummings Green, LMS pre-1928 Unlined Black, LMS post-1928 Lined Black, LMS post-1928 Unlined Black, and 103 in her preservation condition. On the whole, I think this is a good-looking locomotive, although I'm not a fan of the strange louvered chimney. In any case, the front end of this locomotive is giving me Stirling single vibes. Elsewhere, we can see the unusual wheel spacing between the second and third driving axles, although this was necessary to accommodate the firebox. Speaking of which, the firebox door has a rather unusual shape that reminds me of a deep fryer basket. Thinking back to the post-1928 LMS Unlined Black, it's worth mentioning that she has a few noteworthy differences from the earlier variants. There are no wing plates at the base of the smokebox, she uses a conventional chimney instead of the louvered one, and has slightly different safety valves, which, in this case, are noticeably shorter than the whistle, for whatever reason. This pack also includes a little bit of rolling stock, in the form of 4-plank and 5-plank wagons, along with a unique 6-wheel brake van. This rolling stock is supplied in both Highland and LMS conditions, and as far as I know, we haven't got any other Highland Railway coaches or wagons in TS. Unfortunately, the brake van's interior is blacked out, and it doesn't have a passenger view camera. The Jones Goods doesn't come with any scenarios, so your best bet is to run this engine in your own scenarios, either in standard or free roam mode, or just use quick drive. The quick drive requirements are the Armstrong Powerhouse Mark I Coach Pack, Volume 1, why Volume 2 still hasn't been released is anyone's guess, and the original version of CW's Caledonia Railway 123, not the remastered version that we got in 2024. This engine makes use of Simnation's Locomotion 1.3 scripting, and her features include, but are not limited to, Performance Mode Pro, fire intensity synchronized with the exhaust beat, numerous cab camera views, and a fully detailed boiler backhead, although the lack of a speedometer means that driving this engine without the heads-up display could be challenging. Staying on the footplate for a moment, we can see that a reverser lock has been modelled, but the Jones Goods was modelled and scripted before CW introduced functioning reverser locks to their engines. According to this add-on's manual, the ideal fire mass is between 55 and 65%, while the ideal water level is between 70 and 90%, as marked on the F4 heads-up display. The Jones Goods has a good sound set, and I especially like the chuffing sounds above 28 miles per hour. However, the preserved Locomotive number 103 hasn't run under her own power since 1966, the year in which an obscure song by the name of Breakaway was recorded, so the in-game model had to use sounds recorded from a different locomotive, though I'm not sure which one. The only part of the sound set of which I am not a fan is the space bar whistle loop, while the shorter whistles are much nicer in my opinion. I can't remember when I bought the Jones Goods add-on, but I know that I'd already had it for a fair while before I finally took the engine out for a proper run, and said proper run was on the freeware Brigston and Woodsworth Railway. The route was made by Admiral Leviathan, and it's available to download from the TrainSim community website. I'll include a link in the description. As for why I was using Matrix Trains GWR Concertina coaches, it's simply because A, I like how these things look, especially in chocolate and cream, B, they're a recent acquisition, and C, I just wanted to show them off in a video. As I was cruising along from Brigston to F4 for Alderney, I realised that this locomotive is faster than I thought she was. I managed to get her up to an absolute top speed of 57.6 miles per hour, with that speed being reached on the Corwin Viaduct. On the subject of viaducts, another one further along the line, in the direction of F4 for Alderney, is called Y Slade Viaduct, and it got me thinking, why Slade when you can quiet riot? Jokes aside, I actually prefer the original version of Come On Feel the Noise, as recorded by Slade, and have never liked Quiet Riot's cover. Much like the two Caledonian Railway locomotives that I reviewed recently, the Highland Railway Jones Goods is ideal for players who prefer a more casual experience. Even so, I would still recommend reading the manual if you buy this engine for yourself. It's just a shame that there aren't any suitable pre-grouping era routes for this engine, which leaves her with very limited potential outside of fictional scenarios. Even with that in mind, I would still recommend the Jones Goods to TS Classic players who like Scottish steam locomotives in general. I don't know much about the Highland Railway, but it would still be nice to see more Highland locomotives and rolling stock in TS at some point.